And typical fare. And I managed to pick up a 10-inch aperture Dobsonian for $500 yesterday.
Okay, you've got 2 telescopes per person.
Yeah, basically.
Well, you got 2 eyes.
Yeah.
It only makes sense.
I got you beat, Norbert. I got a 92-inch right here.
Yeah.
It comes with a shuttle to scale.
So you have to have one telescope for the Messier objects, the other telescope for the Herschel objects. You got to have one for other random NGC objects as well. So it makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
One of the random objects, typically we'll have 60, 70 students standing in the line wanting to look through scopes. When those students are around, we may actually get some astrophotography done.
Even better.
Assuming the skies cooperate. I'll be here through Sunday night.
If you can find a way to distract the clouds, please let us know.
Yeah. I was awoken this morning to a whole hassle of turkeys just outside the dorm here. They were gobbling up a storm. Oh my gosh. 6:30 a.m.
Wow. We used to have a turkey hanging out at the Space Research Building up on North Campus. One day he decided that he was going to take over the building, and he basically was blocking the entrance that I normally got into. And I was walking up and didn't notice him at first. And as I got closer, he started, fanning out and, puffing up. And I was like, I think I'll be taking the back door in today.
Yeah.
Apparently, he was a rather troublesome one. They relocated him like 4 or 5 times, and they finally had to relocate him in like Chelsea or something because he was such a troublemaker.
Out in the country, we call that background noise that puts you to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
One day when I was Sile Township supervisor, my office had one window that was facing a wetlands area, and I saw all kinds of wildlife out that window regularly. One day I was in a conversation with somebody on the phone. As I was talking, I was just sort of gazing out that window, and suddenly a wild turkey just popped its head up from the ground and looked at me through the window. And I just instinctively said, "Wow, wild turkey." And the person I was talking to said, "They let you drink in Township Hall?"
That's good.
I hope the answer was yes.
So do
Of
they?
course it was.
Jeff, did you start
Unfortunately,
streaming
no.
yet?
Yeah, I should have started streaming right now. It was about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, it's just okay.
Is it not showing up?
I'm just getting a really weird. It says 3 minutes ago it started streaming, but then you click on the video and it says video unavailable. So just check it on your end. It could be just my issue. Hopefully it's just my issue. Check it on YouTube. So just check it on your end. It could be just my issue. Hopefully it's just my issue. Check it on YouTube.
Yeah, it's coming through on YouTube.
So just check it on your end. It could be just my issue. Hopefully, don't worry about it. And if someone wants to funnel any chat questions from the YouTube, since I can't see it, just yell at me. Hey, there's a question from YouTube.
No, actually, your entry is there. It said I'll be monitoring chat so I can try to answer your questions. But
go ahead and ask me a question just on chat on the YouTube chat. See if I see it.
Brian, on chat.
Would you want to restart that YouTube feed just to reload the page? Because it wasn't streaming before. I only turned it on about 5 minutes ago. So.
What's weird is it says at the bottom, it says 4 are watching, started streaming 4 minutes ago, but I see nothing but the logo on the screen. So I'm there you go. I just then don't worry. We're good.
All right.
Okay.
So as we're closing in on the last few minutes there, is there a vice president listening that I could have take minutes? Thought I heard
think
something.
I will be cutting out around 9 p.m. or so because I've got another star party to present at.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He's a busy
That
boy
was-
these days.
That was you saying yes, Julie?
Yeah, I can handle
Okay,
it.
appreciate it.
Sure.
What a
Star
sport.
goodness.
We can't let her off the board. She's too nice.
Or off the
Well, 7:30 has started. I'm going to switch over the feed to show you all. So you are now going to be on the feed within about 30 seconds,
Okay.
which they probably heard us announce that. So there we are. So now you have to behave yourselves.
Takes the fun right out of it.
Yeah, well, it is what it is.
I'm
37 participants, that's good.
Yep.
Means we'll probably hit at least 40 for it maxes.
Where's Brian? Okay, I can do that from here. Good.
Has anyone ever done a graph of the attendance during a meeting? Figure out the histogram? Just curious.
I do take readings roughly every 5 or 10 minutes. So I just write down the time and how many were there on both Zoom and YouTube. That's why I get the maxes for our report at the very end. So, but yeah, I do take readings.
Do the curves look similar each time? I'm curious.
Overall, yeah. They generally are there. Usually toward when we get to the meeting part, I think there's some, like the YouTube thing usually drops off. And toward the end of the presentation, I don't know if people are falling asleep, they lose a connection, I have no idea. But usually we lose a couple from the max off of that. But most everybody sticks around for the entire event. So I haven't seen a whole lot of variation. And I don't even start until 7:30 when the speaker starts. So. Well, 7:35 that is. And thank you, Kurt, for doing the email thing. You beat me to the punch. I was at band rehearsal last night, so for the email ad.
No problem. I've been doing it for years. It's kind of routine.
Yeah, I get to those things quickly because they appear as just quick emails, and it's like half the time I'm in there somewhere anyway, and I'm already authenticated, so it takes me all of 2 seconds to do it. So it's not like I'm overly going toward them or anything. It just happens to be convenient. Going toward them. I'm gonna.
I view it as a challenge, to see who can get to it fastest.
Get to it before Copmanis gets it.
You got it.
Well, I can always slack off, Oh, that's better. I've had the space heater going down here all day. I'm in the a basement office that we have set up, but it's at like kind of the outer corner where the heat vent from the furnace doesn't really get that far very strong, so it's kind of a chilly corner. So. But right now it's toasty warm, and the jacket is kind of overkill. So, 34.
May I introduce myself? Jeff?
Yes.
Can I introduce myself?
It broke up. What's that?
I just wanted to introduce myself. This is Howard Ritter. Since none of you have ever met me, I live primarily in Toledo, but spend the winters in Florida, where I am now. I joined the club either early this year or last year, looking forward to a time when, a post-COVID time, when I could actually get together with the group. So, and I've been in email contact with a number of you, including Brian, who's been very Hi, Brian. Very encouraging of me in my attempts to become an astro imager. So this is actually the first meeting that I've been able to attend. So I appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself.
Yeah, welcome aboard.
Yeah,
More the
nice to
merrier.
meet you, Howard.
Thank
I
you.
kind of guessed
Howard.
from their background that you weren't in Toledo.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I was going to guess from the background that you weren't in Toledo.
Oh,
we
there's
have-
a reflection. There's a
Palm
reflection
trees,
of a,
yeah.
palm tree up there, isn't there?
Yeah,
Well, there's a
I
reason.
saw it blow in the wind a little bit. Yeah,
It was no accident that my computer's out in the lanai.
And I have published some of his work in our newsletter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
yeah. Well, okay, if everybody's ready, I'd like to go ahead and get started.
Okie dokie.
Okay. So, as most of you probably know, I am Charlie Nielsen, the president of this little group of astronomers. And this is our April edition of our monthly meeting. Also, keep in mind that we are being recorded on YouTube. So, as was said earlier, we have to be nice. So, anyway, as usual, we will have our guest speaker before we move into our business meeting. And also a reminder that we have elections tonight. So with that, our speaker tonight is Brian Ottum. Most of you know Brian. He's one of the few people, I think, that's, well, there's quite a few, I guess, that as long as I've been in the club, he's, I believe, been in it even longer than me. As you know, he's a avid, not only astronomer, but astrophotographer that is living in Saline and had his telescope and astrophotography rig set up there. But we don't get that many clear nights and good atmospheric conditions here, so he moved that telescope to a completely automated observatory in New Mexico. And to really show us the images that he is so great at producing, that requires imaging software, which he's going to talk to us about tonight. But with that, as much as we know about Brian, I'm just wondering, Brian, is there anything you'd like to reveal that perhaps we don't know about you?
Back when I was 25, I lost 80 pounds.
Wow. I need to lose something like that. How'd you do it?
Well, it's not all been remained off, okay? It has been creeping back, but I've done pretty well. I was always overweight. I don't know. I graduated from college. I moved away, moved to Ohio, got a job, and it was just a time to do something different and eat better and exercise more. And oh, by the way, my dad died of a heart attack at 58. So
That's incentive.
yeah, that kind of helps. So yeah, you asked what you didn't know that, right? Because yeah,
That's right.
That was about 10 years before I joined, and I joined probably in 94.
Excellent. So with that, since you've got the floor anyway, Brian, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
All right. Well, thank you, Charlie. This is it's a great opportunity, and also thank you to Jeff. Has done such a wonderful job setting up these these Zooms with a YouTube broadcast. I also help out and do volunteering to set up Zooms for different groups I'm involved with, and I know how much work it can be. So thank you so much for being our IT expert. And so this is going to be a little different tonight because usually it's a show I put on, a live observing show. And tonight is not a show. It's really educational, and we don't have a big group, so it can be interactive, right? And so I want to be as entertaining as possible. So I want people to just jump in. Just jump in. You got questions? My presentation is like an accordion, right? It can expand or contract. And we can whip through some slides. We can take a long time on some slides. So I just want to try to meet everyone's needs here to be entertaining and informative. So I'm going to share my screen here and tell me if it's all good. Thumbs
It's
up
all
if it's
good.
good. Okay. So we're going to do fundamentals of image processing here. And Charlie mentioned software. We will touch on software. But I do want to set expectations because we're going to do fundamentals of image processing. I'm going to teach the what and the why we do things. We're not going to get into how. Because how is a rabbit hole where we could spend days.
Yes.
But not only days.
The how is, but unfortunately, a lot of you probably go, darn, I want the how. Because we all want to know how, because we have 100 things we want questions on. But you know what? If you want to build a house, you have to have a good foundation, right? I'm going to give you the foundation, the what and the why. You can figure out the how later. And then if you have a good foundation, well, then the how will become easier down the way. So just want to set expectations there. But, this summer, we're going to hear more about the how from the McCulloughs, right, from Ohio. Our members, the McCulloughs, are going to speak in the summer, and they're going to get into very specifically how they use one of the programs that I'll mention on how they do it. And so they'll be doing a lot of how. In fact, their whole thing will be how. And if the group wants, in the later, we can do other sessions, maybe not a meeting, but we can do hows on that. Okay. So if you saw my shows, you saw this, my life story. I saw a lunar eclipse when I was 12, and I bought a 60 millimeter refractor and then an orange tube, and I got the Star Master, and I got a 20-inch scope, and then I got the dome and visual astronomer just for all those years. But boy, I just always was interested in photography. I was a photographer for my high school yearbook. So I love photography, and I took a lot of really crappy astro photos for a long time, but I wasn't going to deal with CCD cameras. I didn't want any of that hassle because I just didn't want it. So, but once digital cameras came, then I was hooked. So on the left is in the dome, my first telescope that I got for taking pictures, which was the 10-inch Dob. It comes from Taiwan. Well, I still have that. And now I have a plane wave on the right. You'll see that's a one-armed bandit, the white one. And I'm known as probably having the worst telescope on a plane wave mount in the world because it's an old Dob. And that's Vince there. He helped me lift up all my stuff and get it all up and running from a couple of years ago. So, that's the remote scope that Charlie talked about. And so that's how I get a lot of the pictures. But lately, I've been really enjoying doing a lot of local stuff. And it's very important, though, this is maybe a soapbox issue for me. When I talk to people and we hear about people and we talk ourselves about what you want to do to take a better picture, everybody focuses on the green thing. Everybody focuses about, if I get a better camera, if I get a better mount. And what I'm trying to say with this pie chart is that's just one component of a great picture. Great location is really important. Great conditions are important, right? Clear sky. Equipment is, it's important. But so many times the skill with the equipment, taking the time to really understand, because so many folks, like myself, I've gone out with a piece of equipment and I wasted a whole night because I didn't know how to use it. I still do it now. But what we're going to talk about tonight is what I think is the most important part of a great picture of the sky. And the most important part is the post-processing. Skills with post-processing don't really cost anything other than your time. Yet I find that myself and other people are hesitant. We'd rather go on the internet and buy a new gizmo than we would spend 3 hours watching YouTube tutorials and get better at a certain poet processing technique. So I'm always trying to tell folks, especially beginners, hey, cheap camera, tripod, and I'll talk about this in the end, how beginners can get started. You can learn all these wonderful skills for free. And then when you want to spend some money, you spend some money and you take better pictures. But you can take great pictures with just what you've got, usually. So that was my soapbox. Maybe it's a little controversial, but I'm always trying to tell people. And look, at Ansel Adams didn't have his stuff wasn't that spectacular, and he took amazing pictures. So often we see, and my final point on this is that I've been able to go back to old pictures I took and make them pretty good because I learned new tricks.
And I'd second that motion, Brian, because I started with a $130 camera, and I took spectacular pictures of the planets and whatnot with it. So you really can do it with whatever you got.
Yep, you don't have to spend a lot of money. And sometimes, if you can do 2 or 3 of these things, you can get a great picture. You don't need to do all of them, but if you don't want to spend a lot on equipment, okay. Well, if you don't spend a lot on equipment, you better know what you've got. You better do good post-processing, and you better go to a nice location, right? Like the UP or the Grand Canyon or whatever. So anyhow, there's you can compensate for not spending much money. Also, a lot of people, if they got the money, they'll do the opposite. They'll spend a whole lot of money and a lot of location, but they have weak post-processing skills, and the pictures that they're getting are pretty good. But they could be spectacular if they learn more post-processing. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, the post-processing. And this is the post-processing flow. This is what you got to do. I got 10 steps we're going to cover. And we're not going to cover them in too much detail, but you cannot get a picture unless you do all 10. You can't skip these steps. Now, you can do them in different order, but you got to do all these steps. So this is the order. It starts in the bottom left, goes to the upper right, and we're going to talk about each of these steps. They don't always happen in the same order, and sometimes you'll go cycle around. You'll say, oh, I screwed one up. I have to go back, and you go back. So here are the names of each step. And can you see my purple cursor?
Yes.
So we've got the calipers for calibrating. Calibrating, that's when you take your frames straight out of the camera and you get them ready to work. You make them the best they can. You tune them up. Let's just say that. That's a tune-up for each of your individual frames that you've taken. So you calibrate them. And then you got to align them because our tracker, a camera tracker is not perfect. And digital cameras will expose any flaw. And so if you're not tracking on the stars perfectly, from frame to frame, it's going to look bad. And you got to bring those back together. And so that's a very simple. Step 2 is very simple. It's aligning. Step 3, very simple. Stacking. Once they're all lined up, you got all your stack of pictures, you stack them together. And that's magic. That's like one of the most powerful things in the whole list of 10. You stack them together, and that allows you to increase your signal to noise. It's all about signal to noise. We want signal. We don't want noise. And if you look at one frame, if I go take a picture of the sky or Orion, just one minute picture, and I try to work with it, I can do all I can do, and I still got to get if you look at it, you're going to go, oh, that's kind of a noisy picture. It doesn't look too good. It's grainy. So, but if I take 10 of them, whoa, not so grainy. That's why we stack. Color balance. You want to have a nice color balance. You don't want to have it weird looking. Although, what's correct color balance? Well, we're not taking pictures of faces, are we? We're not taking pictures of landscapes. There is no truth. And so this is a controversial subject, and we're dealing with art here, aren't we? It's art here. We're just doing our best to represent the sky in a way that we think represents it, but we have our own eye, and everything depends on our eye and our brain and how we want it to look. And so color balance is something we got to work on, and definitely needs to be pleasing. And anyhow, it can be controversial. Fix light pollution gradients. So if you take a picture here in Ann Arbor area, Ann Arbor is down here on the lower right. You can see the light dome from Ann Arbor. Let's say if we took this picture from Peach Mountain, that's Ann Arbor pointing down to this direction. And then the upper left is the darker sky. And it's called a light pollution gradient. And so that's bad. I mean, and also they're ishy green and yellow, awful. But they are a bear to get rid of. And then reduce noise, another simple one. We have our sensor with dead pixels, or pixels that are dead on, right? They stay on all the time. They're just dead. Dead white, dead red, dead green, dead blue. And what we want to do is turn the left into the right, where we take away those bad pixels. So this is another form of noise. Now we come with the most important, the most critical, the most difficult step is stretch. And this is the one that takes the most time, the most care, the most skill. Most of these other ones can be done with one click. You got the software ready to go? Maybe not one click, but a very small amount of clicks. This stretching one, it never ends. And there's no answer. It's all in the eye, and I'll try to do a little live demo. So we'll do a little bit of how with stretching, because it is the most important step. And then there's repairs. If there's things that are messed up in your picture, we're trying to fix them. And then there's boosting the color, okay? Because color is sometimes weak. You want to turn up the volume on the color. Again, this can be controversial. Some people don't want too much color. They say, oh, was that color in the sky? Well, yeah, I'm not putting color in the sky, but maybe I turn up the volume a little. And then lastly is cropping. And everybody knows about that one. We do it all the time on our own computers, right? We crop a picture and you want to crop. And but usually cropping, you try to think about the artistic composition. So that's the 10 steps. We're going to go through these 10. Any questions? Okay, we'll go through them. And one thing that I don't like is that at the bottom right, I start with 48 raw images. The telescope you saw that's out there in the desert, I'll take 5-minute exposures at a time, 5 minutes. And if I take 48, how many hours of exposure is that total? Correct, Howard was first, 4 hours. So it's just normal for me to get a good picture that I feel good about. I'll take 4 hours worth, and that's 48 raw images. So I've got 48 to start with. So I would have 48 that I need to work with. That's a lot. That's a lot of storage, right? Well, I will bring them into my computer, and then I have to calibrate them, and then I make 48 calibrated. So that's 48 new files. And then I'll align the 48. That's 48 new files. But luckily then when there's 48 files, I can stack them into one. That's nice. And then there's one I usually color balance. Then I'll take that one and I might save as, right, with a new name. So as you can see here, I've got 156 files total here by the end, 8 gigabytes. One picture, like the picture behind me, right? This is M33 right here. This is about 48 images. It started 4 hours roughly. And it took 8 gigabytes to make this.
I'd also like to point out this is for deep space photography. If you end up doing planetary, because there's such a short window in the rotation of Jupiter, you can take thousands of images to start with and end up with, that same one stacked image at the end. But that'll, alignment and all that stuff, the software generally takes care of a lot of the cook down. But to store and to deal with those thousands of images, I've had captures that go up to 30, 40 gigabytes for a single capture. It's crazy.
You end up having to invest in these guys, those little plug-ins, external hard drives, because we have so much.
But by calibrate, don't you mean dark frames and that sort of thing?
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
so this is 48 images, and then you take 48 images of what you're going to take a picture of.
Well, I'll get into it, but the 48 images get calibrated by applying the dark and the flat frames to them.
Got it.
And you do a save as. So each of the 48 get a save as, and then they become calibrated. But it's a lot of files. Now, at the end, when I get a nice picture like that's behind me, I go back and I throw most of these away. I don't keep all of them. You know what I do keep? I keep the last 2 or 3, because if I've messed something up or if I learn something later, I'll keep the last 8 maybe at the top here. And a lot of times I'll keep the raw original 48. Anyhow, but the point is, oh my goodness, the files, the hard drive space, it's ridiculous. Anyhow, so now we'll go into the first step, which is the calibrate. As we heard, Don said, with each of these subframe means one of the 48, okay, subframe, we call it that. We first do a bias. And a bias is just, you take a picture with the camera of 0 exposure. Quickly, 0 exposure. Or really fast, like with a Canon camera, you can't take a 0 exposure. So I take a 10,000th of a second. Okay, that's a picture of 10,000th of a second. And really what a bias frame is, it's the inherent read noise of the sensor. It's just the basic noise that you're gonna get no matter what you do. It's tiny. It's not that important. I listed these are in increasing importance. Bias frames, I found not important. Dark frames. With today's camera, and I have a new one, holy cow, I could get by with no dark frames, but most of us can't. So what you got to do is you put the lens cap on, you take a picture with the camera at the same temperature and exposure for your normal, compared to your normal. So for me, 5 minutes. Put a cap on the top, take a 5-minute exposure, and usually I'll take a dozen of them at a certain temperature, and then average them together. That's a dark frame. And what it does is it captures those dead pixels that are white and blue and red and green that are always on. Okay? If you don't take a dark frame or use dark frames and you have like on my new camera, I have it's wonderful. There's no bad pixels except for one stupid red one in the middle. So as it tracks through the night, not perfectly, you'll watch that it's a red dot that goes across the frame. I'll get rid of that with a dark frame later, but it's easy to fix with Photoshop. So it takes just 10 seconds to fix it. So it's not a big deal. Okay, most important, flat frame. Very important, you do a flat frame. When we look through our telescope through the eye, we don't really notice, but you know what? The edges of the field of view are darker than the center. We don't notice that our eye is not sensitive. But next time, try it. Just take a look. Just point your telescope at something of uniform brightness at the sky and look critically at the field of view in the round eyepiece. And you will notice that the edges are darker. And that's just natural. And so if you're taking a picture with a camera, the corners are darker. And the corners are usually significantly darker. And if you don't fix that, it becomes very hard to get a great picture. If we don't take a flat frame, can you imagine what the quick and dirty method is to fix it? Crop it out. Just only use the middle half.
And I've done that.
I've done that. No problem. You can do that. You don't have to feel ashamed. Not a problem. But if you want to use the whole frame, You got to do a flat frame. And so each of these together, they get applied to each of your individual frames, and it's called a calibrated frame. And there's software to do it. And once it's all set up, it's one click. Boom, done. It might take 30 seconds or 3 minutes to do it across 48 times, because it does 48 times, but it works. So it's kind of drudgery. And once you get it working, no problem.
And just to be clear, the dark frame has the same exposure as your picture, and the flat frame has something less, probably, correct?
Usually it's a short exposure. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's the hardest thing to do.
Yes.
Taking a good flat frame is kind of like a dark art. It's magic. I'm getting better at it, but this
So
I took.
What do you point the camera at to take that frame?
Excellent question. I'll show you on the next slide. This, I have a new scope that I'm going to want to use for public, and it's a real fast scope, and so it takes, it vacuums light. It's so wonderful. Jason called it a photon vacuum, and this is like this right here is just a couple minutes exposure, but look how it's bright in the middle and dark in the corners, right? That's not good. Now, I could just crop M81 and 82 and I'd be fine, right? But if I wanted to include this little guy over here, or certainly if I want to include this little guy over here, then I really got a problem, because the corner's so dark. And so this is one of the tear-herring things, is the flat. Is the background is not a universal brightness. It should be a consistent brightness going across the middle here. This line I'm drawing, right through the middle, it should be equal brightness, but starts out dark, gets bright, ends dark again. And you really need to get rid of that and make it all equal. And so the flat frame is how you do it. And this is how we do it nowadays. $25 now. You can get a light box on Amazon. This is what you put tracing paper on, right? You want to trace? And in China, they're making these things for like 15. It's ridiculous now. These things used to cost hundreds. Okay, I think I spent like 150 or 200 for the first one I ever bought 20 years ago, and now they're like 20. The T-shirt helps make it a little bit less bright. These light boxes don't go real faint, and the camera really doesn't need bright. It just needs a uniform. Okay, see, a light box is uniform. So,
Brian?
Yes.
Well, I was at a Kit Peak a few years ago, and when you're doing monochrome imaging or imaging through narrowband filters like they do out there, what they do is they take sky flaps.
Yes.
Before any stars are visible during the twilight, you just point it straight up, and you get a very nice uniform illumination.
Yep. That's the default easiest way, and they'll do it like every night, right? Or they'll do it every other night.
They do it for every observation. Yeah.
Yeah.
What if you had you were using a wide field of view? Would it still be uniform enough?
Well, the other thing is you want it to be very out of focus, which helps make it uniform. But again, the astronomical telescopes don't have, at least the one I was working with, didn't have a wide field of view.
Yeah. I found that I can reuse the same good flat for months with my remote scope, because I don't mess with it. I don't change the rotation of the camera, right, in the focuser. I don't change anything. And so I can use the same flat. Also, what's good for the flat? Another irritating small thing is if their piece of dust is on the sensor. Have you ever seen that? Piece of dust on the sensor? It's a little gray spot on your picture. Or it's a gray donut. Very irritating. Well, a good flat takes that away. Poof, gone.
Yeah,
So
the donuts show up in the flat, and so that it can subtract them properly.
exactly. So now we're getting into the rabbit hole here and I didn't want to get too much because I know the non-astrophotographers in the group are bored to tears. I know. So we're going to try to move along. Aligning, this one's fun and it's easy because our tracking is never good. It's never perfect. It's a little off. So this 5 minute and the next 5 minute and the next 5 minute are always a little off, and we need to bring them together. And that's all you do with the software, lines them up so they match. And again, this is one click. Boom. That's great. And there's many pieces of software that does that. So the first two things here are, once you set them up, one click, automatic. Then stacking. This is an example I got off the internet of the wonders, the miracle of stacking. Orion Nebula, 5 frames. Look how it's awful noise. 10 frames, little better. 20 frames, pretty good. 40 frames, it's almost impossible to see the noise. The detail was there with 5 frames, wasn't it? But the noise was bad. So that's why we take a lot of images and we stack them up.
Yeah, that's a great example too.
It's not mine. I got it off the internet. I could produce such a thing, but hey, it's already there. So somebody did this, and this is the miracle of stacking, and it works with a telescope. It also works if you just take a picture of the sky with a wide-angle lens, right?
It also works when you do the EAA stuff, because you start off when you're trying to observe detail, those 5 frames to 10 to 20. That's what happens live in front of you. If you're doing 30-second frames instead of 3-minute or 5-minute frames, you start seeing details in galaxy and cleaning up noise so fast. It's amazing what I see in the backyard sometimes.
It's entertaining.
Excellent point. Excellent point. And so you're seeing that whole signal to noise equation on the fly.
Yeah.
In front of your eyes.
And if you get if you're just starting out, one of the things about SharpCap, I'm just going to say this because I use SharpCap for my EAA. I can save all my raw individual frames. So I know within 5 frames if I got garbage going on and a problem. So you can see it live, you enjoy it live, and then the next day you can say, what did I look at, and kind of make it look prettier.
Yes. And that is, we have with SharpCap and EAA, you have the opportunity to have fun while it's happening, while you're taking pictures, while you're acquiring, and then you can, if you want, you can do all this post-processing or not.
Hey, Brian?
Yeah.
Don't you have to double the number of frames every time in order to have the noise?
There is a mathematics about it, but
because it goes 5, 10, 20, 40.
Yes.
And I think to get the same amount, to have the noise reduction again, you would have to use 80 frames. Is that correct?
I can't say for sure.
Yeah, I was just reading this the other day on Cloudy Nights. A guy went through the math, and I can't remember if it's the square root of what, but it's a squared function. It's either a squared function or a squared root, and I can't remember now.
Square root. It goes down by the square root of the ratio. So going from 5 frames to 10 frames improves the noise by a factor of 1.4, and then so on for the 20 and the 40.
And then in total, I find that I get diminishing returns after a 4-hour exposure at f5. So with my telescope, I can go 1 hour, it's fair. 2 hours, good. 4 hours, it's very good. 8 hours, it's really good, but it's not dramatically better than 4. And 10 hours from 8, I don't see any difference at all. So that's why I stick to the 4-hour, 5-hour range in general. So this is our third step in the process. And again, this is yet another one-click stack. boom, done. And what's satisfying about this is now we've gotten rid of 48 files and we have one file, right? Now we're down to one. We got our one. We are ready to go. So these things are all automated. There's software that'll make these first 3 steps, boom. Well, not boom, but automated. You can click, go ahead, have a cup of coffee, and your computer's grinding away, and it's doing it automatically. Now, the color balance is not a one-click, and I got an example here of the Orion constellation with kind of a weird coloring, especially if you look at the snow. The snow is pink. What's going on here? We got to fix that. Well, it's very simple. You just this one required to turn down the red, and we have a more pleasing picture on the right. So you're just varying the color balance. And usually we're playing with RGB, aren't we? Because our cameras are usually set up for RGB, red, green, blue. And we're playing with red versus green versus blue. That's what color balance is. So we don't need to go into that too much because there's many different ways of doing it. And there's no right answer, but the eye is key. You got to have a good eye. And if you don't have a good eye, you can just use numbers. You use the reader of R, G, and B because, white is equal, or the grayscale. It's R and G and B, those actual readings are equal to make gray. So if your eye isn't really good at reading white and black and gray, you just look at the numbers in the software. Now, one of the toughest things is this fixing of light pollution gradients. I talked about this. It's a little frustrating. There's no correct thing. It's not a one-click. It's just a pain. And I'll talk about some software that can do it, but it is definitely not a simple process right now. And there's a lot of different ways to get it done. But I'm just going to sidestep it. I don't want to get into this, but you got to deal with it. If you're taking pictures in Ann Arbor area, you're going to have light pollution gradients. You got to find a way to deal with them. Reducing noise is fun, and this is more of a one-click thing because we reduce noise with dark frames, subframes, but there's still noise, and there's a lot of nice pieces of software to do that, and we'll talk about that. But what I like about reducing noise, it is satisfying. It's one click. Some good pieces of software we can talk about for that. But the most critical, important, and time-consuming of everything is stretching. There is no cookbook. There is no step-by-step, and it's hard. And you got to rely on your eye. Some of the new software has cookbooks, settings, or routines that you can try, and that's great. And if it's made for astrophotography, it's usually going to work pretty well. But this is what I call tweak. You never stop. I'm wondering, should I just do here, I have a quick example here on the next page. This is the same frame. I took this just a month ago, and a color balance is not done yet. Okay, this is a bad color balance, but at least you got the horse head on the right, and the left is the calibrated, stacked, noise removed image. So this is a before and after. And you're stretching it. So maybe we will take a look at how we do this. I have, all right, this is that same image. And I've rotated 90 degrees, okay? And really important, I wish it was big for you, but can you see the histogram there? The histogram is really the most important thing. And we're really getting into the weeds here, but I just want to show you that everything's black, right? It's black. And the histogram starts, it says here, left is black. And the spike here in the histogram says, all your pixels are black. If we were all the way on the right, it would say, all your pixels are white, if it was a white picture. Usually, when you get done, you want to have a nice hump in the middle. A nice hump, maybe like the normal curve, right? the normal curve, right? But right now we did this spike on the left, and there's nothing there. So I'm just going to do a quick stretch to show you how we make the horse head appear. This is using Photoshop, but there are 10 other programs that can do the same thing. This is the most important step of all post-processing. This again is that there is the histogram there. It's a spike right at the left. Left is black, white, the white is on the right. And it's basically showing you the frequency distribution of all the pixels, of all the different pixels in here. It tells you that, hey, most of these pixels are near black. And you got a few that are white, those stars. Anyhow, I'll stop talking and show you what happens. I stretch, I pull up, I pull up, I pull up, I keep going up. And look, now the horse head is appearing. So now look at the histogram. See that? It's no longer a spike on the left. It's moving to the right. And that's what you're doing. You're moving it to the right. You're getting it more towards the middle, so where our eye can see it. But of course, you see I've messed up the color. The color balance is crap because it's all red here. What this says is that the brighter stuff is red, the fainter stuff is more blue. But we don't, for our demonstration purposes, we're fine. So I go back and I do the same thing again. Oh, see, I let it go. I let the mouse go. See? So now we've moved the pixels more towards the center where we need it, and we have a good distribution, and we've spread it out. And so what you're doing is you're spreading and stretching out the pixels, so you have a range of pixels that are kind of faint, middle, and kind of bright. Nobody too bright, nobody too dark. I will do one more thing. Let's say, oh, I got noise. I want to get rid of that noise. And I go here and I really make this like this. And if I go too far to the right, I start to clip. And of course, clip is a 4-letter word for astrophotographers. And you get this from astrophotographers, the tisk, tisk, tisk. Oh, you clipped. And so if you don't want to embarrass yourself, you don't go too far here and you start chopping the histogram and hurting yourself. You're killing data, and you want to let all the data live. So you have to move it back here. See what I moved it to the back of before the mountain starts? I moved it right to the base of the mountain, right there. And then I can really give it a good pull. See that? And now the horse is really starting to come ahead. But now the stars are too bright, and the stars are on the right, remember? And so I pulled it on the right, and that pulls down the stars. The last thing I'll do is to show you, hey, our color balance stinks. See that? We have the red mountain, and the histogram is right there. We got the blue mountain over there, and then green is kind of overlapping blue. But they should kind of line up, right? We want to have a mountain that's mostly gray. Of course, the horse's head is in a red nebula, so you're going to have some red, but the red mountain's out of control. How do we fix that? Well, and with Photoshop, there's 10 ways to do it. I'll just show you the same thing again. I go to curves, and now I won't play with all of them. I'll play with red. Now, let's play with blue first. I'll turn up blue, and if I turn up blue, it starts to be, ooh, that's a weird color, isn't it? That's weird. And then I'll pull down red. There. So now you can see the mountain is looking a little better here. It's not perfect, and we're not going to take the time tonight to get this perfect, but you can see what I'm doing. I'm playing with the mountain, the histogram. And if I wanted to continue, I'd kind of get rid of this blue. It's too much blue. on the right there. We want red, and then there's too much red at the bottom. Okay, so anyhow, this just gives you an idea of what stretching is, and stretching is everything. Stretching is everything, and different programs got different ways to do this. What I showed you is really the most manual craftsman method. Many people, software people, have tried to emulate what I did and done a better job by having a one-click that you can click on a piece of software, and it does a pretty good job. And I think that's what the future is going to tell us. We're going to see more of that. Also, there are software, even Lightroom now will have a slider, and that's easier than that histogram. That curves I was messing with is so hard that a slider's easier. So, any questions on this?
Brian, is color balance the same as the gamma, or is that something else entirely?
No, gamma's the stretch. Gamma is the stretch, and the gamma is strictly this. I'll show you. Gamma is, I think, an S curve. There, that's gamma. Gamma is the degree to which you've pulled down the left to make the dark dark and the light light. And gamma is the same thing as contrast. We're increasing contrast.
Can you comment on what those dark lines are in the histogram that kind of go periodically?
First thing to know is black is on the left. White is on the right. So pixels that are totally black are on the left. And here, as you can see in the histogram, we don't have many that are purely black. We don't have many that are purely white. But of course, we have it right there. That's purely white. The black are really the quarter points, or 1/4, half, 3/4. They just kind of help you out.
I was talking about in the histogram in the smaller display. You've got vertical black lines.
That's just a loss of resolution. That is a bug in the program.
Okay.
Yeah, let's just call it a bug in the program. It's
Artifact.
It's a Photoshop bug. So anyhow, but there are.
Brian.
Go ahead.
Many of the objects we take pictures of, the horse head is a good example of it, are on the average across the entire frame far from white or far from gray. They're strongly color biased, M42 and this or another. When you are looking at the curves and trying to bring the curves together, aren't you artificially altering the color balance? You're trying to achieve sort of a white balance that isn't there to begin with. You're trying to make all the colors of equal intensity, but doesn't that risk having a strongly colored object turn out strongly desaturated?
You're exactly right. Yes. On this or the Orion Nebula, if I was trying to make it all gray, shade of gray, that would be stupid. Then we lose our red. You're right. But when we started out in this thing, it was way off. And so I needed to bring it back. But yes, you have to be very careful when you're playing with the individual colors. And you start, doing this stuff. Mm-hmm. You got to be very careful. And this is the most irritating thing about this, is that you can have a pretty good picture, and then with one step, you've screwed it up. So it's really important to save iterations so you can go back. And another problem is that if I'm staring at this thing, now, let's say I've been doing it for half an hour, and I'm staring at this thing for half an hour, tweaking this, tweaking that, doing this, I've kind of lost perspective. And if I do something, I've messed it up. Sometimes I don't even realize it. And so I find that after a certain time, it's good to just take a break, go get something to eat, step away from the computer, because when you come back and look at it, you see through totally new eyes, and he can see what needs to happen.
Just a comment, Brian.
Yes.
In Photoshop, if you do all this using adjustment layers, so you're not actually editing the raw image, then it's completely non-destructive. You can turn stuff on and off. You can change things again after the fact. It makes the files a lot bigger, but it does make it a lot easier to fix mistakes that you make.
I was also going to comment that history tab, you can undo a bad stretch really easily just by a click.
Yep.
But that's particular, so.
All right. How do you know how this is supposed to look? I mean, when we look through this through a telescope, you don't see all this color. So what part of it's real and what part of it's not?
Well, that's the $1 million question. First, this is art. There is no correct answer.
Okay.
Secondly, we try to remain true to the R, G, and B that was already there in the camera. There is no answer to your question, and there's a range of attitudes.
Well, yeah,
and I will jump in and remember, our eyes do not see all of these colors. That's a limitation of our eyes, whereas camera sensors do pick this stuff up. Okay. So there is a difference in what a camera sensor picks up. All of the structure that you see, even if the colors may or may not be there, and you've seen a lot of pictures of the horse head that look pretty much like this, but right. that data is there. It's the data, the color of the stars.
For me, the
attack, which I think that is a blue giant. Hang on, Jeff, let me finish.
Sure.
And that data is there, so you are seeing real data. How it's colored, how we edit it so that it's presented, that's where it becomes art.
I was gonna jump in and just say that initial histogram that we saw with the gigantic red, mountain that was there. That kind of is a general indicator. It's like you're going to see a lot of red in this photo. So if it, after stretching and what looks good, if you've got a purple image, that maybe that's not correct, but you should be seeing those same kind of proportions, to abuse a word. Does that sound right?
Okay.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
This is Doug. One of the things you can do if you want to have a apples to apples comparison is use what's called a photometric color calibration. And that is based on the actual photometry readings in all three colors of the stars in the field of view. And that tool does exist, and it automatically does a color balance for you. It's a one-click option, but it's not in this tool.
Yes. Okay. And kind of like what Doug was saying is, I'll put little readers, and I don't know, we're getting long on this one, but you can actually put readers to this little eyedropper to see what's the reading of this star, and we can see, it's this R and G and B levels are this, and we can then calibrate in that way, and so the colors will be equal to what those stars really are.
Yeah, because this image I mostly see, when I see images of this, I see a lot of red in it.
Yes, and we didn't, and that's normal. No, the camera picked up the red.
Okay.
We got it red. So anyhow, I just wanted to do some stretching because that's the most important step, and repairs are the next one.
Okay, gotcha.
These are Elon Musk satellites. You got to get rid of the satellite streak going through your field of view. The dust lanes in M31, we want to sharpen them up and show those really cool dust lanes. There's some fixes you can do for that. And if you want to take away the stars and really bring out the nebula, there's ways to do that. And so these are all ad hoc and custom. And there's lots of different programs that'll do that. And we're almost finished up with the steps. Boosting color is easy. We didn't do that, but you can turn up the volume on color. If you do pure stretching and not play with the R and G and B separately, just just play with the gray, just play with the grays, then you end up bleaching out your colors. So I find that I have to bring them back, and you just turn up the saturation knob. Pretty normal. We even can do that, with Windows program. And then lastly, cropping is a lost art, or it's an ignored art. And I want people to spend some more time on that, because you don't have to center things, right? Centering is boring. But I do it all the time. I can't stop myself. So how do we be artistic? So, all right, we'll finish up with what software are people using? There are some astronomical softwares that are great for parts of the process. Deep Sky Stacker is a wonderful program. Is it free or almost free?
It is free.
It's free.
It's a great program, and it does these 3 steps. Boom, boom, boom. Automatically. Wonderful. And it's a great example of the proper tool for the job. It does one thing, it does it well, or it does 3 things, does them very well. SharpCap, as Don mentioned, it can collect your data live, and on the fly, it'll do all these things, and even color balancing, and even some stretching. So it's very powerful, but the problem is that it takes endless tweaking, a lot of tweaking, and some experience playing with it. That's the downside. But it also is inexpensive. It's less than $100, I think. Fixing light pollution gradients, this is a toughie, but we got good an old tool called Gradient Exterminator that's only like $30, but it's been around for a long time, hasn't been improved, but I've used it and it works. It works, and it's like $30. But you got to use Photoshop for that. And AstroFlat Pro, I know that Jeff told me about that. I tried that. It's good also. It can help. It does one thing. It does one thing well. It does it with Photoshop. And the newest tool is reducing noise. AI has reached our field. So artificial intelligence is now being applied to noise, and they have this program Topaz does to denoise, and it's pretty darn good. And so that's very laser focused software. Well, what if I don't want to buy 10 pieces of software? Well, here's one software that'll do it all. Okay, there's many that'll do that. I bolded 2, the 2 big ones. Photoshop is the traditional standard, does it all. PixInsight, the new standard. There's a vertical line here. The vertical line means made for astronomy. Stuff on the right here was made for astronomy. Stuff on the left was not made for astronomy. It was made for photographers. And Affinity is a more streamlined, low-cost version of Photoshop. Images Plus, the McCulloughs will be talking about Images Plus this summer and showing you how they use that. It'll do all the steps. PixInsight is come along to be a very, very powerful program that'll do all these things. But any of these are a big-time commitment to learn. So you don't go down the road of one of these unless you plan on going down the road. These require hours of study and practice, but it pays off. Choose wisely. Talk to other people. Let's finish up. Oh, how can you do this? How do you do astrophotography without tearing your hair out and spending all the money and getting yelled at for spending all your savings?
Sorry.
I tell people, start simple. Start simple. Camera on a tripod, right? 15 millimeter wide angle lens. You can get this picture from Northern Michigan. Okay? $1,000, right? You can get some great pictures and have a ton of fun. All right? I want to get more pictures. I spend $2,000. I get a tracker and a more of a telephoto, and I get a picture of Orion or Andromeda. Excellent. Oh, I want to put it on a telescope. Uh-oh. Now we're talking 4, 8, 10,000. Okay? Be afraid. Be very afraid. Do not jump to step 3.
I would inject Doug Bach here, but I won't do that. Right, Doug? If Doug is still around.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
What's the question?
The question is where you are right now with your observatory.
Yeah, well,
I'm picking with you.
No, I understand, but the simplest thing is the tripod on the with a camera on that with a 18 or 20 millimeter lens to start, and that way you can learn all the processing tools on that. Easy to get data. That's the key, as Brian has pointed out, is processing is where it's at. Your collection system can be any one of these three, but if you don't know how to process the data, you're not going to be happy with your results.
Excellent point.
Right.
Well put.
Do we remember Harry Juday, Lowbrow member from years ago?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Harry was wonderful. Harry had me out to his place in Manchester. Many a night we'd be up late, and his wife would make us cookies, and we'd be in there eating cookies and hot chocolate at 2:00 in the morning. He had a wonderful time. And Harry spent thousands on equipment, but he realized that he didn't like the processing, so he sold it all. And I've talked to many people like that. So, but others are backwards. They love the processing, and then they get into the hardware. So, but it does require it. But I see that things are changing. The software, every 6 months, there's a new piece of software and things are changing. So who knows? AI could give us some spectacular new software that'll do everything with one click. Wow. Then we don't even need this whole presentation.
Yeah, Brian?
Yeah.
Just on the Pix Insight, there's approximately 8 or 10 steps that you can use out of the 300 functions that it has that'll get you where you want to go. And you can process. I don't process my data real well like a lot of people, but I can be done with my galaxies in 15 minutes.
It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I know people, my compatriots down in the desert, they spend 15 hours.
Yeah, because they want that last 10%, which I don't care about. So they spend the other 14 hours on that.
You make a wonderful point. Wonderful point. So
I'll make a small pitch for AstroPixel processor. It takes you through steps to do each one of the different steps, and each one of those things, their default values are very reasonable, and the software itself is, I think, $65 for a year or something. It's very reasonably priced, and it works very well. It takes out all this stuff. Some of the other tools in Photoshop I use in addition to the actual APP, but it can still do most of the heavy lifting. So, and it's pretty easy to use if you use the defaults, but you can always tweak it to do whatever the heck you want.
I see that Pix Insight is gaining momentum, and if it continues to be refined with other people helping with making these 8 routines, it could dominate.
Yeah, I guess the point I was going to make, Brian, is that the people that spend the 14 hours processing, they are literally doing the layers and the making stars smaller, all that. I'm not doing that with my stuff. I basically went through the simple process all the way through a little bit of saturation and produce it. Yeah, it's not their quality, but that's not what my effort is.
I totally agree.
It also, I would say, Doug, and those, you have very accurate images, which, coming from a visual standpoint, we had that question about, is the horse head, is all that stuff really there? Accuracy means a lot, especially in the astronomy world. Now, if you're getting into the photography world, that's where you're photoshopping and you're trying to make a beautiful image becomes more of a thing, especially with the nightscape stuff. It's, and drawing a balance between, well, that's what's really there versus trying to create this beautiful picture. Some of us just don't have time for that. We are interested in astronomy. We're interested in these deep space objects. So like your process, Doug and Brian, we've seen your process is a very good balance between that's a beautiful image, that's an accurate image. And I would think for this group, accuracy might be a touch bit more important than, well, is it a beautiful thing? Because a lot of us like to view it through a telescope. So you have that balance.
I was going to nudge Adrian. The processing does cut into your driving time.
I'll tell you guys the story. We have a gentleman named Doug Struble who he has a unit of integration time named after him. If you put 30 hours worth of time in, you've done a Struble. I do more Strubles driving than I do actual imaging.
I couldn't resist. I'm sorry.
There you go. Yeah, we all have different ways and means of getting to what we're, where we're going. And this slide that's here, I can add a couple of spots to it that I've driven to. So let me go back on mute here.
Well, this is my final slide. These are places that you can go get good pictures with your wide angle lens or your telescope or whatever. And I've enjoyed going to all these places. I guess I'm most partial to this dark zone right here, from Atlanta down to the Osalbo River. It's just nice, dark, and it's only 3 hours or so from Ann Arbor. So that's really all I wanted to cover. And,
and by the way, Boone Hill is in that other dark zone.
And that's why I like that dark zone. Yes. The Manistee and the Cadillac area. It's nice and dark. The National Forest over there. Also great. And fun things to do in the daytime.
I have a question for you, Brian.
Yes.
As far as equipment, what do you feel about, like, I have a Canon EOS, was it EOS 300 or Rebel T3i?
Yes.
Which takes some nice pictures. I've done some basic astrophotography with them, but I've heard things about, ones that are made either specifically for astrophotography specifically with the, I know a lot of them have an IR filter, long wave IR filter, and that filters out a lot of stuff. What are your feelings on that?
I'd say get out there and use it. Get out there just like this, on a tripod.
Yeah, I've done that.
And you should be able to get a Milky Way shot.
Okay.
I have that T3i, and it takes plenty good Milky Way shots. I could show you some examples if you wanted.
Yep.
I definitely can get more if I process. Yeah, I've gotten some pictures, but I've not done any with, I've not done any post processing.
Yeah, do the post processing, stack them together. And get like 5 images and get some so you can stack them together and get that signal to noise. Boy, you can get some good pictures and push it as hard as you learn all you can with that system, that's T3i, and then see where you go from there. Yeah. But don't go to something fancier until you push what you got to its extreme.
Yeah. My story with the $130 camera, I literally pushed it as far as I could until I couldn't take anything better, and nothing I did improved anything. And then I knew at that point what I needed to buy to fulfill the next step in my learning curve here. So it teaches you what you will need as your next step.
Yeah, I think we all go through a learning curve as we're learning how we start by learning how to get images that are similar to what we've seen. And then we begin getting, as we go through it, our images start getting better and sharper. And, we start discovering things that we didn't know was there. It just, it never ends. Learning all the steps is, it has to be a part of the fun, because it, even though there's software and things that, you may think it's a one-stop shop, I can just hit a button and the picture I take with my camera is going to turn into this beautiful image. It's not when you're starting out, but you get used to how your process goes from acquiring data, which we call it, up until, your images. And you want your images to be satisfying to you as well. If you try and chase the stuff that Doug Bach and Brian Ottum has done over the years, look at Jeff Koopmanis. His images are showing those signs that he's going to be getting pretty good here in the next year or so. You're going to see some really good images coming out of him. And he's, every night he gets a chance, he's going out there. And it's about developing your style. And to me, it's about love of the night sky, and you just keep going at it. If you have a fail, it's okay. The next clear night, you try again, you learn from your mistakes. You don't give up and sell your gear if you can help it. Just keep trying, and just enjoy the ride.
Okay.
You will, yeah, and use the equipment you have first to its maximum capabilities. One of the things that you will do is you'll get frustrated to some degree, but let me give you a little frame of reference. 1978, hovered over a 12.5 millimeter illuminated reticle eyepiece, manually guiding on ASA 400 film through an 8-inch. And you do that half-hour hunch for one image. And you do that 5 nights in a row, and you take your film in and you send it in, and nothing comes out when it comes back.
Oh, I know we live in a whole different world than we did back then.
Back then, yes.
Okay.
Getting back to that
I was 12.
Rebel setup we were talking about earlier, will post-processing bring out emission nebula, or is that beyond the capabilities?
Well, you're not going to get super red, but it'll pick it up. You get some pink.
I can say this: the darker your skies, the more red you actually get with an unmodified camera. There's some images that I've gotten because I drove up to the UP, or I drove into the Thumb to go and get them where there's minimal light pollution, and all that hydrogen alpha, all of that came in to my unmodified camera. So you can still get it. It may take a longer exposure. If you go, modified cameras, which is, it's a thing that if you do that, it takes less time for you to pull the hydrogen alpha. And if you do full spectrum, then you've got other sources of light or spectrums of light that you can pull in. But then you still have to, you're processing in order to, maybe take down some of the red or, other things that you want to do with your images. So it also depends on what you like to shoot at. If emission nebula are your thing, then after you've practiced for a while, you may say, I don't like standing out in the cold for 20 hours at a time trying to get all this data. Maybe I'll I'll modify my camera so I don't have to take as long a time.
Or you get
go ahead, Doug.
Or you get an astrophotography camera.
Yeah, you end up doing that. If you're shooting at deep space objects, ultimately an astrophotography camera it does it better than a Canon, but you can, if you're not going to expend the cash for that, you can still do your deep space objects with your camera. The brighter the deep space object, the little easier it is to get. Like the Orion Nebula is something everybody shoots because it's very bright and you see it naked eye. If it's naked eye, then it's a good first target for you. Going straight for NGC 7293, probably not a good idea. So you set a little bit of expectation as well. Shoot for the moon.
Spend a real long time on both image capture and post-processing, and only to find out that it was beyond the range of my camera in the first place.
Your camera picks up most anything. It's distance from Earth that's probably more of a problem, and how much light from it gets to you as opposed to whether your camera can get it. The further the object back in time, the fainter the object, the harder it is to get, depending on where you're doing your imaging from. The soup of Ann Arbor, there's going to be a lot of objects that'll be harder to get. Even the Milky Way is hard to get if you're trying to do from Ann Arbor. But
I really wasn't planning on going for the Hubble deep field, I'll tell you that.
Doug's got a deep field, and it's a very impressive one. How many hours of integration for your
my Perseus cluster was 12 hours of data.
Yeah, so there you go. It's the same principle that Hubble used for its deep field. Hubble was able to focus on some spot in space for 10 days or something. And, you get a similar effect. The longer you take your exposures, the more data you pull out. So it's just kind of how astrophotography works. All you visual astronomers, the longer you look and observe, the more detail you begin to see with your eyes. It's actually the same principle, just a little bit different. So it's those that are very good at visual astronomy. The process is similar, just that it's with a camera. So it's, there's more data being pulled down because the sensor is bigger than your, the sensor in your eye is not 7 millimeters.
The problem with the eye is you get to a point where you're saturated and your perverted imagination takes over.
Yeah. And then you do things like get rid of the stars because you just want the nebula. You can do a lot of artistic things once you've gotten to that point. And I know there's a few astrophotographers that are here in this meeting now that could talk about their own process, what they're looking for. But, you've gotten all the basics. Howard, I know you've got images as well. You have a process. All of us have a process. Doug and I like to do wide field, and Doug's taken some very nice star fields. Doug Scoble. So it all depends on what you like to shoot and what you want to get better at doing.
Okay, with that, we have been asking Brian questions all along, but does anybody have any that they'd like to ask at this time?
Well, I saw a slide up there that said astronomy at the beach was going to take place at Island Lake. Is that what's going on with that?
Yeah, I declined to actually show that slide because we have no decision yet. We're really going to be meeting that June meeting. I think is a critical decision point for us, the second Thursday in June.
Yeah, the thing with the club, every time we say, let's talk to the U about opening Peach Mountain for the members, and then, it's 10,000 cases a day in Michigan and 150 in Washtenaw County, and we never get anywhere.
Yeah, it's really hard for us. It hasn't been getting easier, but really we need to be making a decision in June, one way or another.
Yeah, it's a lot bigger project. I agree.
Right now, Jim, the one of the determining factors is the DNR, the parks regulations on sizes of groups that can meet under one rubric. We don't know what their determinations are going to be later in the summer. So again, we're hoping by June we may have more solid information. You probably can fairly count on at least a online event like we had last year, and we're hoping perhaps we can have a hybrid event. But again, that's where we need information in order to make decisions, and right now the information is not available.
Yeah,
I second that.
I definitely sympathize.
Thanks. Sympathy, we appreciate sympathy. We're going to need
yes.
We also appreciate do your best to not be part of those statistics. Safety is more important. At this point, and with what we're seeing with the rise in numbers, it certainly is taking us down a peg in terms of how we thought, well, maybe we could do a hybrid event. There are things that are planned for the summer. Most of us are vaccinating. I'm not here to say whether you believe in vaccinations or not, but do what you can to be in your mind to be safe. We're having these online meetings so that we can stay together, even though we're not out of the weeds with COVID yet.
We should probably have a
more extended discussion as part of the business meeting and let Brian go if he wants.
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere. No, it's Adrian who has to go.
Yeah, I gotta go somewhere.
You
I'm
gotta
presenting.
go.
Yeah, I'm
5 minutes,
presenting.
yeah.
It's in 40 minutes, but the thing starts at 9 o'clock.
Oh,
so I'm
I missed it.
unfortunately I won't be around to know whether I've been kicked out of the club or not. So just someone break it to me gently, will you?
Bye.
No, we just gave you a few more jobs. That's what we'll do.
Yeah,
that's a good
That's
idea.
even worse. That's even worse torture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. If I find out I just became the newsletter editor,
Hey, there's an idea.
the observatory
Ooh.
director, and 2 of the vice presidents at once, then
Was
That's
that
right.
was that
that won't happen.
Was that a volunteer? Was he volunteering there? Was that a signal?
no, because Jack just told me observatory director's off the table, buddy. So so I won't be able to worry about that. Maybe associate observatory director. I don't know if we'll create a new position. But
if I could skip ahead in the agenda just a minute, since you do have to leave shortly, Adrian, is there anything that you want to report as part of your officer's report?
Nothing to report other than what I mentioned. I'm about to go and present. David Levy is in this. It's an Explore Scientific Global Star Party. I presented at the last one. I'm trying to get Brian Ottum to be one of the presenters. I'm talking to the folks that are running it, and
The check's in the mail.
the checks in the mail. Okay, thanks. And a couple of the astrophotographers from the Plymouth Astrophotography Group have presented in this as well. I sent the email. The link to follow along is underneath my big bright picture. explorescientific.com. They've got a live section on there that you can follow along with. So however long the business meeting is, my presentation is supposed to start at 9:40. So there's time, but I'm gonna end up showing up so that they know I'm there. And my presentation will be short. It'll be on the 3. There's 3 atmospheric things that I've managed to see in the last few months with all of this travel. Zodiacal light, light pillars, and aurora. So it's been a great blessing to be able to see all of that in a relatively short time. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Adrian. So then jumping backward, where do we have any other questions for Brian?
I only had one, and that is, what effect do you think using filters would have on your processing steps?
Good question, because I totally sidestepped filters. What's wonderful about using a black and white camera and then putting filters in front, especially narrowband filters, is you can get darn good pictures from right here in Ann Arbor area. So that is a wonderful revolution we've seen in astrophotography lately, is being able to do great imaging in light polluted areas with these filters. And it's the same 10 steps. It adds another step, right? There's one step now, one more step where you have to combine those separate filtered images if you want to put them together. Okay, like a lot of people will take narrowband images, right, of hydrogen alpha or oxygen or some of the other ones, and then they'll want to put them together. Or the Hubble palette, that's a set of filters. But yeah, it's the same process, but one more step to combine, and maybe just a little more work on that color balancing.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not hearing any other questions. So then I have a question for Brian. Could you use another club cap or t-shirt?
Well, I'm wearing my t-shirt and it's in good shape. But yeah, I could use it. I could definitely use a hat.
Do you like the high profile or the low floppier one?
Well,
Does it have a propeller?
Probably the floppier one.
Got it.
Got a high profile one right there, though.
Yeah.
Does the
Of course, if you get the floppier one, that doesn't mean that you're not high profile. It just means your hat isn't.
I'd be happy with either. Happy with either.
All right. Make note of that.
And thank you all the non-astrophotographers for patiently listening to all this detail.
It was great stuff, Brian. Thank you. We enjoyed it.
Yes, definitely.
Next time, I
Very
promise
much.
to put
Thank
on a
you.
better show. We'll do more entertainment, and hopefully we'll get together in person sometime, and I can show everyone my very exciting. I have a very exciting public EA electronics assisted astronomy rig that I have put together. I can project the horse head 5 feet onto a screen, full color, in 1 minute. 1 minute. Of course, no.
But that requires us to be out in the winter, though.
I will be able to put the Andromeda, an 8-foot Andromeda, on a screen in 30 seconds. Now, this will be located a long way from Mr. Forrester, I promise.
What's really going to be impressive is when you can project it onto the sky.
I can't do that yet. But anyhow, I got a really cool projection system with live imaging. I'm very excited, and I can't wait to show it to all of you, because you're my customers. You're my beta testers. But
he let that loose.
Hey, I think John's onto something about projecting on the sky. I mean, look how much we have a nice cloud layer for you to use as a screen, huh?
Yeah.
True.
Well, sometime soon, hopefully, we'll be able to do a beta test of the new system.
Sounds like fun. Okay. So moving along, the next thing I have here, as you know, this is the month that we have officer elections. I had sent out an email about this. I don't recall if I had listed the candidates so far, but I believe Jeff did. And actually, if I just share my screen here a moment, I will hopefully show you that list. Is everybody able to, well, this didn't turn out quite the way I thought. Yeah, I don't know why it's not going full screen.
Looks like you've got two different screen.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, that's odd, isn't it?
Why don't you try closing those two yellow bars?
Computer, and I'm just now starting to use Office 365 and got very mixed feelings about it. But anyway, I'll just read these off just for review. What we have so far as nominated for president is, once again, yours truly. For vice president, we have Jay Pauling. For vice president, also Elizabeth Calhoun, also Dave Jorgensen and Adrian Bradley. For treasurer, also Doug Scoble. Observatory director, Jack Brisbane. Newsletter editor, Amy Cantu. I'm sorry, Amy, for mispronouncing that. Online coordinator, Jeff Kopmanis, and webmaster, Krishna Rayo. So with that, do we have any other nominations for any of these positions? I see, John, you have raised your hand. I'm going to drop my screen sharing here. Hang on a second.
I have not raised my hand. I never did that.
That was interesting. I just got a message that you did.
No, what the hell happened here? Good God.
That was really weird.
Yeah,
Anyway, I'll ignore that. So,
thank you.
Not hearing any other nominations. Do we have any? If that's the case,
I would move to close nominations.
Support.
Okay. Then I'll take that as a motion to accept the slate as presented. We had
Move to
support.
accept the slate by acclamation.
There you go. So that means we can do this by show of hands. So if you are voting yes, then if you just raise your hand, I'll do a quick scan of the pictures here. Okay, I either see people raising a virtual hand or a real one. So then with that, is anybody opposed? Is that saying you're opposed, Jack?
Nope.
Oh,
I
okay, you
agree
had
with
your
you.
hand up.
I wasn't sure with the hand if you saw it or not.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So, okay. So the motion carries. That is your new slate of officers. And with that, as we know, Don Foley has decided to not be newsletter editor for a while. For many, many years, he was and did an excellent job at that position. And Don's still going to be around with the club, but just not newsletter editor. So if you want to turn your mics on so that he can hear it, I would like a little round of applause for Don Foley.
Great job, Don.
Thank you, Don.
Yep.
And then also Jim Forrester, who was a newsletter editor for many years himself, and then became a vice president and served in that position for many years, is not an officer anymore. However, Jim had a lot of different duties, particularly related to open houses in Peach Mountains and scheduling the open houses, various other things that I can't even think of right now. I mean, I know there, but to list them. Anyway, he is not going to discontinue some of those functions. We might just make it life a little bit easier for him, but Jim is still going to be very involved and very useful for the club. So likewise, I would like a round of applause for Jim Forrester. Thank you, Jim and Don. Job's well done, and we'll still be around. So with that, I just had two other quick things. One is Pro-Main Library. I had sent out an email about this. This is a library up in Heartland that we have done events and presentations at least 3 times, I think, that I can think of. And they have asked about a presentation again, understanding, of course, the pandemic situation. In this case, it sounds like what they're really hoping to have is a presentation as like a daytime type thing on the Perseid meteor shower. So not knowing whether we could really say yes or not unless they went virtual, which I think they might be open to, that I asked them to contact me in the early summer. And meanwhile, I would see if we could get some people that might be able to help. And that early summer, we might have a better idea of whether we could do something live or we can try to arrange some kind of remote session. And in response to that, I got John Wallbank and Doug Bach, who said they would be interested in helping out. So as we get closer and get that next communication from them, I'll get all the parties involved in the loop, and we'll see if maybe we can't put something together for them. And also, I got an email from Shannon Murphy, who's one of our liaisons with the U of M, about the Michigan Math and Science Scholars. As most of you know, and ones that don't will now. Pretty much every year, with the exception of last year, of course. We have done 1 or sometimes 2 sessions with the Michigan Math and Science Scholars, which is a group of high school students that are about to graduate and are considering going to various colleges, not necessarily the U of M. And we set up a little star party for them at Peach Mountain and show them a lot of objects, answer questions, and it's always been a good time. So she has reached out to me to say that they are interested in scheduling a virtual session this time. I don't believe she gave me dates, but I'll recheck that. So I'm just throwing that out there to see if there's anybody that would be interested in doing this. Obviously, some good candidates would be people with observatories that could do that kind of session. And I'll also send an email probably tomorrow about it so we can hit the larger email group and see if we can generate some interest there. Because certainly whatever we can do for MMSS, I certainly would like to do that. So That's actually all I have for right now. So with that, I will go to our treasurer, Doug Scoble.
Charlie, can I interrupt for just a moment?
Yes.
This is Kevin Denny with Nor Vance at Fish Lake. Don't intrude on your meeting, but I saw you on the computer. Just want to say, go Great Lakes Stargaze, people.
Thank you.
We are having the Great Lakes Stargaze this September, so please come and join in.
Okay.
Okay. I already got my site picked out.
I'm hoping optimistic by September we'll be in a better place. So we'll see. But thank you.
We're going to run it like we did last year. It's all open air. But
yeah.
Thanks for letting me intrude.
Yeah, oh no, I'm glad you let us know that. So
yeah, you bet. We're on course.
Okay. All right. Back to Doug.
Okay, back to Doug. We have 162 memberships. $9,963.02 in the treasury. Since the last meeting, I spent a little money. A $60 donation for the Clear Sky chart. $146 for our annual rent of our P.O. box in Ann Arbor. And we spent $243.72 on some of those floppy caps you were talking about. So the low profile caps I was getting pretty low on. And so Charlie, you've picked them up already.
Yep.
So if you can get one of those over to Brian, that way I don't have to mail it. But I can if you want.
No, I
still
can do
have
it
3. What's that?
I can do it from here.
Okay.
Yep. So if you can just send me your mailing address, Brian, in case I don't have it somewhere.
Well, if you're going to mail it, I'll go ahead and mail it. Unless you think you want to deliver it in person. But if I can, because I have 3. Yeah.
I do work most days of the week. Well, that's the thing. It depends. If I go into the office, it happens to be in Saline, but then it's also during the daytime. So I don't know if that works out with Brian or not.
Charlie.
Yes.
I'll get together with you and we'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Okay. No hurry. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think you were trying to say something, Brian?
There's no hurry to get me the cap. I know you're going to be around.
There you go. Okay. All right. We'll get that done. So.
All right. And one more thing that's not quite official. Doug Warshow showed something. So many of you, most of you probably don't care, but I think there's a few Lego people here, and they just released a new, I have to back up here so you can see it, very large model of the shuttle Discovery, and it comes with the Hubble Space Telescope in the same scale, and it's over 2,300 pieces. It looks like a really, really nice kit. I think Doug Warshow built the Hubble, but just go online and you can order them, and they're pretty slick. So
does that add
saw
cloudy
that
nights?
advertised, and I dropped a hint with my 2 boys about my upcoming birthday. I'm
there you go.
Suggestion to my wife about what a wonderful idea we had for Dad's birthday.
Yeah, I've been hoping. Right. I've been hoping for them to release a shuttle with the whole launch stack with the solid rocket boosters and the fuel tank and all that, in the same scale as the Saturn V that came out a couple years ago. But it's not the case. This is a much larger scale, so it's a big model. When it's done, it's foot and a half long, and it's highly detailed.
You can take out the Wolfpack 2 camera too.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't see quite. Sort of chopped off the bottom there, but. Oh, okay.
Wow. Doug, I did get out to the mailbox today.
Okay.
I have Ms. Gallard's check.
Yep.
What should I do?
Well, if you can afford a stamp, throw it in the mail to me.
I can do that.
Yeah, because what I'll do is she already paid me by PayPal after I talked to her, and I told her, well, once the check arrives and I see it, I'll just tack another year on for her. But
okay. And an address for you?
1308. I can send it to you but anyway,
Okay, that's fine.
1308. Yeah. 1308 Gold Court. And it's Traverse City. 49696. So now everybody knows my address.
49696. And I also have your receipt for the post office box.
Oh, okay. Yeah, throw it in the same envelope.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know when I'm going to be down there yet, because I have to pick up caps from Charlie. Charlie, we'll communicate separately as far as if you need a better supply of shirts or caps, whatever. We can settle that up. I don't know when I'm going to be down again, but it'll happen sometime.
Who knows? Maybe I'll end up coming up there.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, if you come up fishing.
Yeah. Once in a while, I'll get lucky and can get a business trip up there. So,
road trip.
If you guys,
I'm coming up there. I'll be up there in June, and I hope to see Doug then. So,
Sounds good.
I was
We're going to have a busy June because we have a couple other friends and people coming up. So I think we're going to be visiting with a lot of people up here. So
let's see. Doug has his hand up.
Since we're chatting with Doug, have you gotten up to Sutton's Bay to the telescope shop up there on the peninsula?
I did last year when we were up looking for homes. We stopped in once, and it's a nice little shop. And if I needed equipment, it'd be a nice place to look around and buy something. But
with telescopes in such scarce supply, shipping wise, I'm just curious if they still had any kind of decent inventory up there. But
yeah,
it's been a while since.
Yeah, I haven't been there this year yet. So it was last year I stopped in briefly.
Okay, just a curiosity. Thanks. It is a cool shop. If anybody's up there,
it's a really cool shop. Yeah.
It is. The wall, the Teleview wall, you kneel in its presence, and it's astonishing. So, okay, thanks.
Yep. So that's my report. I have nothing else as far as I know.
Okay. Thank you, Doug. I don't believe I see Dave Jorgensen.
He was on earlier.
Nope, I didn't think he was.
Earlier.
But we do have Jim Forrester.
Well, I think I gave most of my report and I went to the mailbox. I would like someone else to do that. I'm willing to continue to do the chore, but it's diagonally across town for me. Liz lives 3 blocks away from me, so her taking it over doesn't make any more sense than me continuing to do it. But if anybody lives on the northeast side of town, it would be a lot easier for you that's going by there most days to pop into the post office every 2 or 3 weeks and see if there's anything in there. Hardly anything ever of note ever is. The 2 items that I pulled out today, that's really unusual. So, we keep the box so that the occasional mailed piece actually gets to us, but somebody does have to check it.
Jim, is this the PO on Green Road? Because I'm
That's right.
I'm only a few blocks away.
Oh, okay.
So what I need to do as far as pickup and delivery and all that stuff?
Well, like I said, there's hardly ever anything there that's worth mentioning. I've mentioned the 2 things that I've found in there in the 6 or 8 months that I've been doing it. So that end of it isn't really much of a chore. I'm just going to stick with it.
You give an alert and then I go stop by, or is that how it works? Or?
Well, yeah, the post office has the hours that it's open, and you just go in there and I think the boxes are open almost all the time, but.
Yeah, they are. The boxes are open 24/7, so that lobby area is open. And
yeah,
the only reason we have a dues check this time is someone didn't read. I try to very clearly indicate, send your check to my home address. Don't send it to the PO box. And she just got into automatic mode, and so that's there. And that receipt, really, the receipt for the PO box, I have an electronic receipt, so that really doesn't really matter. But if you're going to send me an envelope anyway, just throw it
I
in there.
might as well send it all along.
Yeah. So I need to get a copy of the key, or?
Well, you and I have to meet at some point to.
Okay. Sure.
So.
That shouldn't be any problem.
No, we can figure that out on the email.
Okay.
Thank you, Doug.
Okay. And thank you, both of you. It sounds like one more little problem solved. So, okay. With that, how about Joy?
I don't have anything. Thanks.
Woo, that was efficient. Thank you. And outgoing newsletter editor Don, but you still got one more report if you've got one.
Yeah, I guess the thing that I've noticed is we normally post the newsletters to our website. A newsletter hasn't been posted to the website since October. So someone needs to take the newsletters and post them. Okay. Krishna normally takes care of that, but it looks like he's been pretty busy as of late. So there's an outstanding activity there.
Okay, I'll make a note of it. Well, moving on, the communications committee. Is that okay, Charlie?
Are you done?
No, I'm not.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I'll make a note of it, though.
Okay. Also, what I did is I created some indexes to the newsletter for the 4 years that I did. But, I published 6 indexes because I didn't know how to combine them into one document because I don't have Adobe to do that. But maybe Dave Snyder or someone else could somehow work and include the indexes onto
I can do
our
that.
website.
I know how to do that easy. And we have Adobe at U of M, so.
Right.
That's a to-do item.
And I've got some expenses that I'll send to Doug Scoble. That's the end of my report. And I've got a couple of articles in my folder here that haven't been published, and I'll send those to Amy.
Very good. Anything else, Tom?
That's all.
Okay, Jeff.
Yeah, I got ahead of myself, but tonight we had a maximum of 48 viewers, which amounted to 44 on Zoom and 4 in YouTube.
Attaboy, Brian.
Yeah, Brian draws them in. He'll be on the slate next. I'm planning on. I talked with Christian about what is good nights for him to get together for the communications committee because he's kind of central on a lot of the issues. And it looks like Wednesday nights are going to be good. And tentatively, I'm just going to say we're going to try to do the first Wednesday of the month, which is going to be May 5th. And I decided on that about 10 minutes ago. So I think that should be workable for Christian and I for sure. And I've got a list that other people have chimed in over the last couple of months over, interest in doing that kind of thing. So I'm going to contact everybody with a rough itinerary about what's going to happen and what we can talk about and try to act on, hopefully. There's things like the website, newsletter editor to be in there and posting the newsletter stuff, maybe how to make that easier, those kinds of issues. So that's what I got so far.
Thank you, Jeff. And I don't see Krishna out there, so that brings us to Jack.
Oh, goody. I'm going to need about 4 or 5 minutes to explain what's going on. First, I'm going to go over to share screen, and you should get this. It should pop up. Let me just do just a couple of things here. Come on. Let's go. Here we go. I'll get this taken care of. All right. Now, first issue, AT&T Tower has not been decided yet. We're still arguing with it, what they're going to do. I talked to the people at Dexter Town Hall last week, and the person there told me that they do not have a date in the Planning Commission when they're going to discuss that. So it looks like sometime maybe May or June, something's finalized. Okay. The slide I'm showing you here is from the Dexter Township lighting ordinance. They're into shielded lighting for outdoor lighting will be shielded. And I'll explain the reason for this in a minute, so everybody's on the same page. This issue has to do with some new things that are being constructed on North Territorial and Dexter Town Hill Road, about 1.5 miles from the observatory. So here's the first one. Some of you are familiar with this. It was shut down in the middle of the year, this little plaza on a corner of Dexter Town Hill Road in North Territorial. It is now going to become the LaFontaine Commercial Vehicle Sales Building. So, yes, but because of the shielded lighting ordinance and the other things, here's a layout that I've got from Planning Commission site. You can see here's the building I just showed you, and they are using shielded lighting on the sides of the building, and they have a shielded lighting that will go on the area around the parking lot area. Now, that should help, and then you can see some diagrams here, some other diagrams on the bottom, how the lighting will be. They're talking around a 5K brightness under the shielding lighting ordinance. If they're using neon lighting, they don't have to worry about, they can use a different lighting that could be less than 5K, and it's okay. Or it could be 5K and still be okay under the shielding lighting ordinance. But the fact that they're doing this means all light is shielded and faced inward in the area, not outward, which is good. And here's a little idea up here on the other one, and here's the other types that are being used here. So that's the good part. Here's the next part. As you can see, this is tree planting that goes around the outside. That'll help with some ground lighting and keeping the ground lighting inside on the facility. And that means that with the shielded lighting and this type of layout, we should not have any lighting impact on the observatory. And just to give a little understanding about this, this comes from the approval at the Planning Commission. And here's the approval numbers and dates. And exterior lighting shall be designed and arranged so that it is deflected away from the adjacent streets, adjoining property. Nice thing is, flashing intermittent lights shall not be permitted. So we're not going to have any of those outdoor sign flashings going off and on. And it meets the ordinance standard. So there's a reason I'm bringing this up, because this is the new single-family residential development. It's on North Territorial, Dexter Town Hill, and this little light here is LaFontaine next to it. Now you can see all these houses that are built here, and I attended the Planning Commission meeting on April 13th when this was discussed, and I did ask them if there would be any overhead lighting, any kind of street lights going on, and the guy and the Planning Commissioner and the people there said no, there would be no overhead lighting. And here's the results on the environmental standards and the zoning ordinance for the lighting on this facility. And the site plan says there will be no exterior lighting. And if there are street lights in that, then they have to be approved or added to the site plan. But I asked them this question on the 13th, and they said there would be no street lighting at all. Just housing lighting, like lights on your garage, front door, that kind of a thing. So with that, that's the end of my presentation. The lighting at the La Fontaine issue should not be a problem. And this new issue here across the street with the subdivision should not be a problem. Now, the reason I brought up the issue about the Dexter Township lighting is they do have a ordinance for a dark sky lighting. As you read some of the comments from the people living in the area, those people want a rural setting. They do not want overhead lighting. They do not want this to look like downtown Ann Arbor or downtown Dexter, as some people have referred to. So that's why they have a lighting plan in place that is pretty good, considering other places. I know Canton doesn't have a shielding lighting like this for residential area. I mean, commercial area, yes, but not residential. So I just thought I'd let you know what's been going on out there, because I know this is going to raise some questions later about observing. But we should still have dark skies, and I should not see any light shooting up through the Milky Way. So that's all I have for right now. We're still working, doing maintenance work out at the observatory. And I do have a group of the Observatory Tree Maintenance Association is we'll be working out in the area so we can get some more darker skies out there, and a little more observing area with some tree reorganization. So that's about all I have right now. Any questions? I know
it sounds like good news.
It is. They have a good lighting ordinance there for Dexter Township. Now, Dexter City's different because the commercial area downtown and other things like that. But out here, a lot of people want it kept rural. They do not want it to look like downtown city.
I think Mr. Norbert Vance might have been involved with that township ordinance.
Yes, he might have been. I think he's still online. I'm not sure. If he still is, chime in, Norbert.
It doesn't look like it.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm still here. I'm playing the role of student tonight.
Student.
Fish Lake is
That's why I didn't see his name. He's stealthy.
Yeah. Quick question, Jack. The garages, are they going to have the shielded coach lights, or are they going to be those usual obnoxious? Because you got a lot of homes there, and it all adds up.
From what he told me, the lighting there, he did not state if that was going to be the shield. I know what you're talking about, the coach lights on the side, because he did not state if those were going to be shielded. He only stated that there would be no overhead lighting and no other types of lighting out there, except for the garage door sighting and that. And that is an argument. There's a lot of places do not have shielding law for the side of your garage. It's quite an argument too. But, it's a good point and a good question.
Yeah,
Next
I've
time
been
around,
through
maybe
that,
I can ask him that.
I've been up through that with Genoa Township up here in Livingston County. The other thing is on the auto dealership, every auto dealership has a huge American flag that they leave up all the time, and they shine some floodlights on. And I'm curious as to whether the lighting ordinance is going to control that also.
Now, according to this, on the La Fontaine one, the flashed or intermitting light should not be permitted. Exterior lighting shall conform to the provisions of Article 2404. From what people told me and what I heard, that's not going to happen. They don't want those lights shooting up at other parts of the house and things like that. And they don't want them shooting in the light. They don't want the lights going up in the light into the sky, like a certain religious organization had about, I think 8 or 9 years ago, maybe.
I was going to mention that.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you and a few other people contacted the city and the ordinance about that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, that is the church is in Webster Township, as it turns out. And I know years ago, Norb and I went to Webster Township and actually did a little presentation about light pollution. So I'd be curious sometime if I found time to check their ordinances and see if they've really done anything to respond to that.
Good point. I know what Dexter has just by reading this. Some of the other parts of their ordinance. They have a regular, I downloaded the ordinance. It's Article 21 of their ordinance department. It's about 5 or 6 pages of different prohibited lighting, intent, purpose, exemptions, stuff like that. So it's a good point about shooting the lights in the sky on objects, but according to them, it looks like the flash and intermittent lights will not be permitted. People don't like that out there, so I think we're safe there. But I agree with you. You never know. Somebody else might come up with an idea that they would like to do that. So
but it's also billboards and the like.
Not from what I read, what I've seen out here, they're not going to have billboards and that in front of the La Fontaine group. But that doesn't mean later on some other company coming out there might want to do that. But according to this lighting ordinance, and they want this kept as a rural setting, and they don't want intermittent lighting or flashing lights, I think that's pretty positive. Because I do know that's an argument with a lot of cities. They put up the billboards, they got the lights flashing, or they'll have a digital light in the background going off and on. So it's the best I can say for now. And a lot of this has already been, I guess, over the last year during COVID-19, a lot of this was being discussed out there. Some of this has been approved, but based on the ordinance I have in place, I think that's really good. So, and this, like I said, the housing area and that, considering they're supposed to keep this rural, keep the trees and everything around. And so we'll see what happens there, but he did tell me there would be no street lights in that. And I did notice in the meeting minutes from the previous meetings, local people in the area asked those similar questions about street lights and any other lights that they did not want to see out there. So that was positive. The only thing I can say is, I guess the reason this is happening is if I got this correct, it's Dulski Farm property was sold off. And this is the results of that farm sale, what they're doing out here. So there could be, as the economy changes, more land up for sale. So we just have to keep track. Hopefully we don't get some really strange lighting requests.
Similar things are going on here in Livingston County. We've had a lot of farms go up for sale and being split up. Yep. Lots of new houses going up within 2 miles of me. We have a company who wants to build an asphalt factory 2 miles from me that our township is now trying to, the people in the township are getting on the township board of directors to say, don't let that happen. So anyways, lots of things are changing.
Yeah, you're right. Just kind of lucky we got on this one and they have a shielded light ordinance there.
Just want to ask you, Doug, are you involved with a group that is trying to limit the asphalt plant or eliminate it?
I'm not directly involved, but I am monitoring the reports coming out every week.
We have a similar situation in Genoa Township, and we've been in touch with the people that are working on that asphalt plant issue. It has to do with Sky Glow, and this development down here off of Dexter Town Hall Road. Because of concrete driveways, there inevitably will be some Sky Glow created by anything that even has garage lighting that's directed downwards. So we'll just have to put up with that.
One of the challenges with residential too is you can have them not put any street lights in. You can hopefully control that color of the pavement, but you can't really tell them to turn the lights off in the house. So enough of them, you do have some degree of impact, but at least if they don't put street lights up, then it's pretty minimal.
Yeah. I expect there'll be some people that will have some kind of lighting they have to have on the house to accent something, and it'll probably be bright and shiny. So
yeah, there'll be some challenges, and then you never know. And this would be more likely to happen with LaFontaine in the housing development, and that is when they actually start building it, they violate their own agreement. That's what happened at St. Joe Church. They had some regulations, and when they actually built it, they ignored many of those and then went and tried to ask for forgiveness when they didn't have permission. Fortunately, the township or the planning commission really did enforce it, or they attempted to. There were several lowbrows involved in that also, trying to lobby for them enforcing it. And we believe, but cannot prove, that what really got them to back off on that and put in the lighting as was specified was some help from our friend Brother God. Because it seemed to be after a conversation with him and Norb at an event over at EMU, sometime about a month after that, all of a sudden, magically, the priest that was there at the time made an appearance at Township Hall. The way it was described to me is he came in like kind of like a dog with his tail between his legs, and he apologized for everything, said he was going to put everything and bring it back into compliance, and he did so. But the person I talked to said that they thought that maybe somebody had talked to him about this, so it makes you kind of wonder.
Yeah, well, when you get a call from Rome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I heard is that he got a call from the Archdiocese in Lansing, and my suspicion is that there was a call to Lansing from a certain friend of ours, but I don't know for sure. So,
yeah. Well, I'll be honest with you. I have that situation across the street from me. The property was always vacant, and they did build a church there in the end of 2019. And I had enough sky glow, I could see my reflection inside my house. So I wrote up a little paper about light pollution and everything, contacted the ordinance officer in Canton, filed a complaint, got a few other people to call in, and they went in and made them put shield lighting on the parking lot lights. The other lighting was shielded too. After night, they have to turn off all these other lights in the building. And they had to do some maintenance and repair work out there too. So I probably got the evil eye on me for doing that, but it is better. But like I said, if you don't have anything in ordinances to do that, in virtually, there's nothing you can do about it. Because in the city of Canton, they did have an ordinance about how many lumens of light were allowed to be detected at the end of that commercial property zone. And they violated that lighting part of the ordinance. So they told them, no, you're going to have to go in and make sure all the shielded lighting and everything on the parking lots is down. And it does look a lot better, and it's not as bright. But if something was to happen where they lose light at night, I wouldn't call up to DTE and say anything. I'd just let it happen and be quiet. But that's about it. So yeah, churches, they get a little happy with their lighting, so you have to be careful about them.
You know, I was counting up the houses on this little plot sketch, and that's going to be a lot of light.
There's 48 houses there.
Yeah,
well, I have looked at other houses in that area, and it's not as bad as light as you would see at night, only because a lot of these subdivisions have entrance lighting, and there's no entrance lighting, overhead entrance lighting either here. So that's kind of helpful too. But you're right. There is going to be some glow from there, and only time will tell how bad it is. Yeah. But I'm hoping we should still be able to see the Milky Way across at that at night, and we should.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Well, for what it's worth, the subdivision that I'm in doesn't have any street lights, to speak. They don't have any street lights, and the only light that you see off the street is people's yard lights and whatnot. And yeah, there's glow along the street, but it doesn't really seem to travel up very far. So I get a pretty good view from my driveway, that's my primary viewing spot. It's not horrible. It's probably not optimal, but it's not horrible. Christmas time is a challenge because of all the Christmas lights up, but
now that's true. I imagine at Christmas time, you have so many houses will have lights on all night and everything else. But considering our elevation over them and that, I'm hoping it's not that bad. But then again, in the middle of December and January, we don't have open houses anyway. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens with that.
Jack, has any use of Peach Mountain been extended? I remember that sign they put up, no groups. And
from what I've heard, I have not heard of any changes.
Okay.
And from what I'm hearing from U of M out there with all the increases on the COVID-19 and everything else, matter of fact, I don't see anything changing out there until this starts to actually go away. There is really a severe change. I mean, I've gotten vaccinated. I imagine other people in the club have gotten vaccinated. So if we did go out there, like doing maintenance, some work on it, it shouldn't be a problem. But as for an open house and having 100 and some people out there, I have my doubts about that.
Yeah, I'm convinced we will not do an open house this year. But I'm ever hopeful that we can, get the members out there on some sort of rotating basis to use the facility at night. But, I imagine that if we were the only group they had to deal with, we could figure something out, but we're not. And I really don't want to bother them when they've already got their hands full.
Well, what I've read from some of the so-called people doing epidemiology and making predictions, they're looking at the June, July, what the numbers are going to be, because by then you should have a major group of people vaccinated. But then again, that's all projection. So another 4 months from now, how true is that? I don't know. It depends really on how well the vaccinations go, groups, and what happens to the COVID-19, how much it retreats. And that,
the numbers have to go down.
Yeah, that's the truth. The numbers have to go down, and the U of M has to be satisfied with it. If they're satisfied with it, then they might be satisfied in having some members' nights out there.
Yeah, and that's something I think we could do fairly safely. We could, tell everybody that by June or July that they're going to be vaccinated to come out there. That these are the rules, and you have to, sign up. We have to be able to get a hold of you. We're going to do contact tracing, all that kind of stuff. I mean, we're a small enough group that we can actually take care of those things.
Well, yeah, because that's really what I'm looking at, what the U of M guidelines would be. If they had guidelines that says, yeah, you could do that, fine. If they said, nope, we're not changing our guidelines on our property or U of M campus, because they own Stinchfield Woods and we have to comply with their thinking on it.
No, I not only understand it, but I agree with it, because it's a big headache if somebody screws up. So,
well, one of my things I was looking at was, the MMSS group always meets in June, July, or July, August, depending on those 2 weeks. And in the past, it's been around July, and they were going virtual. So they do not plan on meeting out there.
Yeah.
And
Good
the
point,
other
Jack.
argument would be what happens with Angel Hall. I mean, if they still have everything closed off, then we will probably be doing Zoom meetings till the end of the year. So you have to look at it. Angel Hall is where we meet, and they make the decisions on that.
Yeah, I've been shuffling the COVID-19 things off to the officers, but the U of M presidents, the provosts on down, they are planning on having a relatively normal fall term, but with extra precautions and procedures in place. So it leaves us probably better, but in a still vague situation.
Yeah, well, what I have to say about that is that they've done a pretty miserable job so far of getting the students to comply.
They've come around finally, but it took a while.
Yeah, you had to lock them out of all the buildings. Then they finally got the
They started expelling kids.
Yeah.
That's going to change attitude. Then the kiddies will all think, okay, maybe I'll get my shot and do what I'm supposed to do.
Then they get a letter from mom and dad. It's like, what the heck? But yeah, they are doing better now, and the Washtenaw County numbers compared to campus numbers, the campus is doing relatively well. So, but that's the official word. Whether that comes true or not is anyone's guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to shut my screen off and get rid of the stop share and turn it back over to Charlie, and you guys figure it out. Okay?
Yep. I just wanted to add one more thing, and that is to congratulate Amy and Liz on becoming our newest officers. Although in the case of Liz, actually, she was an officer, a vice president a few years ago. And I will be calling for an officers meeting pretty soon to sort of get everybody oriented, and even got a couple things to talk about. So with that, does anybody have anything else that they need to bring up? Yes, Liz.
No, I was indicating agreement with calling an officers meeting. That's all. Sorry, I didn't hit the mute fast.
Got it. Okay. Well, hearing nothing, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Support?
Second.
Is anybody opposed? Like we're going to listen to you anyway. Okay. With that, thank you, everybody, and we will reconvene next month. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Good night.
Good month.
Good night.
Stay
safe.
Do you have something now, Liz? Or are you just waving goodbye? Okay.
Just
I
wait.
officially,
Norbert, wish I was there.
Yep.
But I don't get my second shot until tomorrow.
Have fun with that.
It's no big deal. I didn't even feel the first one.
Yeah, because I didn't feel much on the first one, but the second one was not real pleasant. I mean, there were even times that I started wondering, if they call this mild symptoms, I wonder what moderate is.
Yeah, my wife got hit.
But I survived it.
My wife got hit hard with her second shot for a couple of days, but on the other hand, I got no side effects. Maybe a foggy day the next day, but I think it just
we're going to
varies.
find out.
Yep.
We're both going together, so we'll find out.
Yeah, I didn't even have a sore arm on the second shot.
Oh, I had a really sore arm from both of them, way worse than I would have with the flu shot.
The nurse that did mine I never even knew she did it. The first one.
Yeah. The second one.
I said, are you done? She says, oh, yeah.
I saw him kind of reach in that direction, and I'm just sitting there, and I was about to look at him and say, are we going to get on with this or what? And then I saw him pulling the syringe back.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's kind of like my first one.
Yeah, first one I helped him.
And she says, well, I've been a nurse for 30 years. I kind of had some practice doing this.
Yeah, so I think a lot of it's just luck. It depends on where they happen to poke you.
Well,
Joy probably would have some input on that, but
I've heard it's how fast that they pump the liquid into you while drawing out. There's a technique to it, and not everybody gets it right. If you got a big wad of liquid, it tears more tissue apart, so more pressure, all that kind of stuff. So
We just need the ones like on Star Trek where it's just a thing that shoots vapor right through your skin. Nice and easy. Makes a cool little sound.
When are they going to do that?
We have those, but those are super expensive, so we don't use them.
Thank you, Joy, because I was going to say, I thought I heard something about those being used in the military for some things like years ago.
I've seen them on certain drugs by certain drug companies. Like, you want to do, like, say, an acute med, like, say, a migraine medicine or something. They'll use it for that instant delivery, or, like, say, an EpiPen, that instant delivery. But it makes the price of the device so much more expensive. Nobody buys said product.
You know, that's an issue of patent rather than the actual cost of the device, especially with the EpiPens. That's just a criminal ripoff.
Oh, you want to hear expensive? You ought to look at the price tag on Sprycel. It's a chemotherapy my daughter's been taking for 7 years. It's $13,000 a month.
Oh my God!
Oh,
that's criminal.
Yeah. It's
you know, when it comes to manufacturing basic chemistry, that can get pretty rough. You know, expensive. It's hard to sort that out, but it definitely sounds like it's a monopoly problem rather than.
It is. They have the whatever they call it.
The patent.
They have the patent on it. It started out when she first started taking it $9,000 a month, and it's up to $13,000 or $14,000 a month now. She's not paying it, obviously, because no one can afford that. But they go through their deductible by the end of January on their insurance.
Well, that and the insurance company's shelling out the money, so they're going to make up for that in insurance rates, which means it spreads out across everybody.
Anyhow, sorry, didn't mean to bring that up.
Yeah.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
She has leukemia. That's what that's all about.
Well, I'm more than happy to pay a few extra bucks so that she can have the medicine.
Yeah.
For the rest of her life.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Better than the alternative.
She's only 33 now. With that, have a good day.
Time to end the stream.
All right, I'm checking out too.
If it's clear, I'm going to go open the observatory up and start imaging, if it's clear.